So if you were going to think of a publication that loves to smear Rogan more than any other, who would you guys pick? That's right, Bloody Elbow. That was me, like, Bloody Elbow. Nice, Jesse on Fire. Really awesome. Great visual. Thanks, man. Just came up with it right on the spot. Bloody Elbow. Idiot. Anyway, but yeah, Bloody Elbow, they love smearing Rogan, man. They love it. They love it. You might remember a video that I did a long time ago titled, I can't remember, it was Trent Rainsmith, who went hard in the paint that Rogan needs to be fired, that he is a bad person, he's a bad reporter, he's a bad podcaster, he's a bad commentator, he doesn't know anything about MMA, and it's time for him to go. And this coincidentally coincided when Rogan was right in the middle of a specific type of debate relating to what people are, going to be mandated to put in their bodies. And it was like, oh, okay, I see. So you disagree with him. So let's destroy his career. Let's take the thing. Like, hey, what do you think Rogan loves more than anything? It's like, well, I'm sure that right up there would be his position in the UFC since he's been there from the very beginning. He probably feels a lot of like, genuine, like deep connection to the growth of the sport and the growth of the organization. And he's really close with Dana, and Dana went to the wall for him with Disney and all that. So I would assume that's very high up on things that he cares about. And they're all, yeah, let's try to take it from him. You're all, why? Well, because he disagreed with us on this very important issue. You're all, and you're a scientist. What? This is a science issue. You're a scientist. What do you mean? You're a scientist. Of course you're a scientist. You're a scientist, right, Trent? More of a scientist than Joe. How? Go ahead, run me through that. How are you more of a scientist than Rogan? Well, I don't listen to conspiracy theorists and lunatics. Okay. So you think you're justified in trying to take his job from him? Yeah, I'm going to write this really mean article about him and say that it's time for him to go. You're all, hey, how many people do you think are going to read it? I don't know, probably a lot. You're all, no, probably not a lot, actually. I would assume, actually, that more people heard about it when I did the video about it and, went inside of your rectum and then pulled your throat down through your stomach and out the entry hole, I would imagine a lot more people heard about it there than actually read it because you have like 10 followers on Twitter, although maybe that went up. Maybe a lot of people were like, yeah, I don't like Rogan either. Trent Rainsmith wrote that, just to remind you guys. And so they're back at it, and they did an article here about Rogan saying that GSP would have gotten wrecked if Masvidal would have been around at that time. This is the headline. Okay. Now I'm doing low production here, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to superimpose this, but trust me, you can look it up yourself. Okay. Bloody Elbow said, Joe Rogan forgets his MMA history and claims a prime GSP gets wrecked, and then, quote, if Masvidal was around at that time. You're all, man, it's crazy. Like, that would be nuts if they just made that the headline and that's like not at all what Rogan said, right? Like, it'd be crazy if they made that the headline and yet the only thing that Rogan said there was the quote, if Masvidal was around at that time. Like, that would be totally crazy, right? Because then they would just be completely misrepresenting what he said, right? Like that. I mean, but Bloody Elbow would never do that, right? Come on, he wouldn't do that. And of course, like in their own article, it wouldn't just completely betray the headline as complete slanderous nonsense, right? Of course, if I'm doing a video on it, you rest assured that's probably exactly what they did, and it is exactly what they did as usual. Now I'm going to show that to you, or I'm going to read it to you, and. We'll go from there. Now, if you like this content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I think I'm going to put this on my second channel, Jesse on Fire After Hours. So sub, dude. I do this stuff for you guys and myself because I like seeing people enjoying my content. And if you enjoy me ripping shit journalists who deserve to get ripped in public, then subscribe to the channel and you'll know because I do it a lot. It's one of my favorite. It is my favorite thing to do, actually. I love when I see people try to slander Rogan because it's always so disingenuous and misguided and I can't stand it. And so I just love it. Like, it's like, I feel like they're doing it to me, because I know why they're doing it. And I agree with Rogan on these things. And so I feel like they're doing it to me. And so I take it really personal and I'm like, well, let me just expose them for the utter hacks that they are in fashion that people who agree with me will probably think is pretty funny, Maybe. Or maybe they'll just like seeing me, shit down their throat. So let's jump into this thing. So I'm just going to read you the relevant quotes. And also, I'm going to disagree with Rogan on something here. I'm actually going to stringently disagree with Rogan here. So if anybody's like, oh my God, he always just jumped on Rogan's bandwagon, I actually totally disagree with Rogan here. And believe it or not, this was actually not about Masvidal. What he was talking about wasn't about Masvidal. It was coincidence that this happened right before Masvidal was coming on the show. So Rogan was probably careful about what he said, but this didn't really have anything to do with Masvidal. Okay. So what he was talking about, right? What he was talking about was how GSP stacked up against Kamaru Usman. Okay. That's what we were talking about, or what they were talking about. And he said, I think Kamaru Usman's level of competition that he faced is higher. GSP was so good, he raised the bar. But you look at GSP's victories, he beat some very good guys. But I think the guys Kamaru Usman beat, Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, Tyron Woodley, I think they are better. Luke Combs, who was the guest, was like, are you saying that you think Masvidal is better than GSP? And honestly, they didn't even quote what the guy actually asked, right? He said, but as the musician checked if he really believed that Masvidal is better than a prime GSP, Rogan only doubled down with a bizarre response. Rogan said, yeah, I think that if Masvidal was around at that time, he would be dangerous for everyone. I think he's on another level. I think everyone is on another level. Okay? So again, here's Rogan's quote. I think if Masvidal was around at that time, he would be dangerous for everybody. I think he's on another level. I think everyone is on another level. Interesting. Does that say I think Masvidal would wreck GSP? No. And here's the rest of the quote. The Masvidal that knocked out Ben Askren, that was one of the craftiest moves that anyone has ever done. He went sideways and ran straight at him, and Askren's instinct kicks in, and he kneed him into the Darklands. Just one shot, boom, into the Shadow Realm. Masvidal, he knocked out Eve Edwards with a freaking head kick back in the day. He is an assassin. Masvidal is a gangster. Okay. So I don't know where there is he saying Masvidal beats a pro? You honestly think that if someone was like, hey, straight up, Masvidal that fought against, Ben Askren against GSP, you're picking you're picking Masvidal. You think Rogan would honestly say that? No, of course not. That's not what he was saying. He just said he said he thinks he's a problem for anyone. And here's the other thing. Masvidal's about to come on his podcast, dude, right? And so I will say certainly that if you look at the guys that Masvidal has had trouble with and you were like, all right, what's their skill set? Be like, well, basically GSP, Like GSP would actually be like the exact worst case scenario for Masvidal, if we're being straight, Like Masvidal has a trouble with the wrestlers who have decent stand-up, and GSP is just the best possible version of that. So yeah, I think Masvidal would have a problem with GSP. That's nothing against Masvidal. I love Masvidal. But here's where I'm really going to push back on George. Okay, so bottom line is, okay, does that sound, here's the headline. Joe Rogan forgets MMA history, claims prime GSP gets wrecked if Masvidal was around at that time. Did you hear him say that? Did anyone hear him say that? I didn't. I'm just saying, that's not what I heard. When you actually read what he said. His point was that Kamaru Usman fought tougher competition than GSP. And I am going to push back on that, and I'll tell you, well, not necessarily. I'm not going to go like fighter for fighter, but here's the point that I'm going to make. I do agree that Kamaru Usman probably fought tougher competition, but here's the thing. You don't know that, and the reason for that is because GSP was so dominant that you can't even accurately assess the quality of the fighters that he was fighting against. Because when a guy is that dominant, it makes the rest of the division look childish. It makes them all look like second-class citizens. There's no way for any of them to stand out as great on their own. You can look at anyone who had a dominant era like that, where they genuinely just ran through everyone. Anderson Silva, John Jones, you're all, John Jones has Daniel Cormier, obviously, but Daniel Cormier is obviously one of the greatest fighters of all time. So you look at GSP, and yeah, he just kept beating the same guys. He's so dominant. They're like, man, there really wasn't anyone else there. It's like, well, that's how it looked at bantamweight 2.5 years ago. Like, it was like TJ Dillashaw suspended. They're all, man, there's like no one at bantamweight, huh? Like Garbrandt lost twice, so it ain't him. It's like, geez, and without TJ Dillashaw, like, what do you even got at bantamweight? And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, it's the most stacked division in the UFC, Cejudo retires. Oh my gosh, there's literally no one there. Wrong, wrong. That's how it looks when one guy runs through everyone. You know what I mean? And GSP was that good. Like, to me, the story of the two things makes it clear that GSP is the better fighter because he was so dominant that it appeared like there's no one there because no one even gave him a tough fight until what's his name, that they gave the decision to GSP where he clearly lost that fight. But the dude was on juice, Jesus. Oh my God. This is a problem. These are people I know, Like, I know this dude. He's a cop now, right? Oh my God. After that fight, he just completely fell off a cliff. Oh my God. Whatever. You guys know who I'm talking about. This is embarrassing. I do this with like people, like my friends and stuff, like people that we train with, where I'm like, that guy, Jesus. Early stage dementia. Or I just have so much stuff in my brain I can't keep track of all of it. You know what I mean? I can't. I'm just talking, trying to think of his name. Come on, dude. Come on. No, I can't believe I'm going to have to look this up. I can't believe it. This is embarrassing, dude. This is embarrassing. GSP controversial split decision. Good God. I mean, come on, dude. I'm going to throw my phone when I see this. Oh my God, Johnny Hendricks. Jesus, man. Good Lord, that's embarrassing. I wasn't going to get there either. I'm telling you right now, that I wasn't even close. I wasn't going to get there. Man, that's scary. I'm going to forget my kids' names, man, when I'm 46 years old. Dementia. Anyway, bloody elbow. Any chance I ever get to shit on them, I will. Rogan did not say that GSP would have lost to Masvidal. Okay? Masvidal is much better than people give him credit for. Much better. He just, has been beaten by wrestlers since his reemergence. Like, people are like, oh my God, you know how many losses he have? Blah, 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 blah. People are forgetting his story, man. They're forgetting his story. He had kind of dicked around and partied and whatever. He went to the jungle, changed everything, came back. Since then, he has 3 losses. Kamaru, Colby. Kamaru, Colby. That's it. 3 best guys in the division. So we'll see how he looks against Burns. Let's go, Masvidal. He looked good at JRE, and I'm excited to see it. Let's go. That is what I've got, dude. I love you guys. Subscribe to the channel. Peace.